now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@caymanmarlroad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning, folks. 1 second, I need my mic. Of course, I did not have my mic on. Good morning, everyone. It's like you get all these bits and pieces going in the morning, and then you forget to turn on your mic. So good morning, everyone. Give me one quick second here. I'm just going to get this going. There we go. I'm sure you guys can still hear me. Put this underneath and right through to the top. Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone? Big shout out to all the wonderful people. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Good morning, Evelyn. What happened to our trigger finger friend this morning? Atlas. He's normally the first one to jump in with his comments. Christian, good morning to you. Elizabeth, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás? How was your weekend, my dear? I trust that you guys had a fabulous weekend. You guys see the little birthday balloons in the back for my daughter's birthday party last weekend? They have survived an entire week. And yes, she was 4 years old. Hi, Joy. How are you? Hope you guys are doing well. We got a lot of ground to cover this morning. I feel like some mornings we got so much to catch up on, especially Monday mornings, because, you know, we've had the long weekend. We got a lot to talk about. Andy is here for it. I'm going to adjust my light just a little bit. Louis, good morning to you. Blessed with another day to spread God's love. Absolutely. Good morning, Lisa from Cayman Brack. Thank you for tuning in. Marshall is here for it. I think you're in North Carolina, right? Richie. Hey, Richie. How you doing? Yes, we are supposed to be grateful for life. Sometimes I think we forget a little bit about how fortunate we are. And let's never forget. I was reading the news. Thank you so much, Lisa. I dug this out of the back of the closet. I've not worn this in a long time. I was like, you know what? Let me throw it on. Why not? Why not? You know, tomorrow is my birthday. So I'm so thankful to be getting a little bit older. And I don't know, like birthdays kind of come for me. Like I don't really, yeah, they literally come for me. I guess they come for us all. I don't get super like invested in birthdays. Like I'm not necessarily the one that's going to throw a birthday party for myself. You know, I'll do a little something with like dinner or whatever. I think I'm going to be treating myself to something that I haven't done in a while. So, of course, it's a tech product, right? I mean, I think anyone who like wants to shop for me, they're like, what do we buy you? And I'm thinking, okay, jewelry, which is normally way too expensive for anybody to buy, except maybe a spouse or something. And then, of course, tech products, which sometimes can be just as expensive as jewelry, right? So, yeah, but I'm thankful to just be able to see my birthday, normally enjoy it with a couple of friends, and why not? It's a beautiful time to be alive, in my opinion. Despite everything, I'm just really thankful to be at it and going. And I think we all should be. Now, I was reading the news. I was just saying to you guys over the weekend, there's a young man who's only like 38 years old or something. He's some celebrity. And he passed away in his sleep. And I don't think they have a cause of like death yet. I don't know if he had anything. Sometimes people have underlying conditions like they're diabetic or other things that we don't always know about. And, when they die, we're shocked, but maybe their families know a little bit more about their health history than we do. So, yeah, so it's kind of sad. But this is why I think we have to be so incredibly thankful, because no matter how old you are, how young you are, death really doesn't discriminate. When it's going to take you, it's going to take you. It's like, it is what it is, right? So, super thankful that we've all made it. Couple of things over the weekend. There was an accident, a very serious accident, actually, on Saturday, that has left a young man who's a student, I understand, at John Gray High School and on some sort of life support. So yeah, this is very, very sad, but my sources indicate that he is starting to do some better. I don't know if they've actually removed him off of the life support as yet, because I think they were going to attempt to do that to see if he could breathe on his own. But I had a lot of people contact me on Saturday to say that a student, apparently he was one of the drivers, is what our sources have indicated, which I don't know. I guess you could be a learner driver on a learner's permit. I don't know exactly how old he is to be driving a vehicle, but this was right on Crew Road. And as of Saturday morning, he was still in life support, and the doctors were going to try to remove the breathing support from him to ascertain if he could breathe on his own. So again, I know that a lot of the parents at John Gray High School had received some information about that, and obviously his friends would know more and probably be very concerned about his situation. So our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, and we are hoping for a full recovery. There's so many issues when it comes to like young people and driving that sometimes really just are shocking. You know, it's just a combination of the lack of experience. They tend to be distracted. They want to get in the vehicle and speed with each other or just totally be distracted instead of paying attention to the road. And that's why it's really, really important that you're very mindful of your young people when they're out and about driving. And you're also mindful of how and who you are allowing them to drive with, because the who makes a big difference. If they're driving with younger people in the vehicle with them, other teens, they're more likely to have an accident than any other time in their lives. So I think that's very, very important. And, you know, sometimes your kids leave out to do one errand and they end up stopping by a friend's house, and God knows kind of where it goes from there. So good morning, Richie. Yes, Richie's saying 1 year wiser, older, and hopefully wiser. Marshall from North Carolina. Evelyn wishing me happy birthday already. Thank you. It's actually tomorrow. So tomorrow is the 18th. Hi, Alice. Can I tell you, for the longest time, my birth certificate actually was my birth certificate, my passport? One of my official documents actually had the wrong birth date for me. Happens, apparently. So this is back in the day when somebody else would go and register you other than your mom who gave birth to you. And so someone went, I guess probably weeks later, and did the registration and just got the date wrong. So I had like one document that said the 18th and one document that said the 17th. And at some point I had to get it fixed. I can't even remember how I did that, but it didn't seem like it was relatively hard to do back then. So yeah, we fixed it. It's actually the 18th of August. And I think I was born at night. I'll have to double check, but I think it was at night. Yeah, right here in Georgetown Hospital. And you know what is so crazy? Back then, if you had other people born on your birthday, you're pretty much all born at Georgetown Hospital anyway, right? And you kind of know who those persons are who would have been sharing the hospital with you. So there's a couple people, including there's a young lady from East End. She shares my exact birthday. So the same year, the same date, everything. So back then you may have only had one or two babies, maybe three tops, being born on the same day. Now you have like tons of babies being born in the NICU together, right? Thank you so much, Nikisha. I appreciate that. Charlene is like, you're getting ready for your birthday. Looking good, looking good. Well, I actually went to the salon on Friday. You can't really tell, except some of the grays are gone. So I need to do more with my hair. You guys need to help me with the hair situation. I'm so helpless when it comes to like doing anything except pulling it back in one. I need to start doing like curls and different stuff, you know? When I go to the salon, it looks good for like the day. And then after that, forget it. Richie. Richie says that the island lost a legendary bartender last week, Peter Harvey. He suddenly passed away in his 50s. Sad. You never knew. Enjoy life to the fullest. Oh, wow. I don't know who Mr. Peter Harvey is, but thank you, Richie, for letting us know. Peter Harvey. Let me see if I can find him. He says he's a legendary bartender. Where did he work? Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know Mr. Harvey. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Olivia. Good morning to the beautiful Morna. Evelyn says they actually got her name wrong because her dad went and registered her without her mom and somehow messed up the name. Oh, Evelyn. But you've kept it. You just kept it as what it is. Okay. Nikisha, her son, will be sharing a birthday this month with me, August 21st, just a couple days away. Yeah, Nick, Evelyn, I think that that happened to a lot of people, because I think my dad had a similar issue actually, where his name, which was, well, we always said Urick, Urick, but I think on his birth certificate or something else, they had it spelled slightly differently. There were even people who would get the last name wrong. Like I know some of the McLeans, when they went to register them at birth, they spelled it wrong, or differently, I should say, but it wasn't the same as the rest of the family. And they just kept it. They didn't bother to change it. So that's kind of weird. I would think a last name is a much bigger deal than a first name. So if you notice that some of the McLeans are McLain and some are McLean. It's things like that. Like somebody just went and registered the baby, got it wrong, and then that baby never decides, even adulthood, to have the name changed. So speaking of birthdays and deaths, President Trump lost his younger brother over the weekend. I think he was about 71 or 72. So condolences to the Trump family. You know, at the end of the day, it never matters how famous a person is. You know, death is death, and it comes for us all. And that's quite unfortunate, but it's part of life. That's why you've just got to live it, right? And in fact, speaking of President Trump, you guys know it wouldn't be an interesting couple days without President Trump doing something or saying something of interest. So apparently he's trying to make some changes to the mail-in process, mail-in voting, that a lot of people are fighting. So the Democrats were having some sort of emergency hearing. The House Speaker was calling them back in yesterday to have some sort of an emergency vote or something. And then the presumptive Democratic vice president nominee, and we're always going to now pronounce her name right because we had a viewer last week told us it's pronounced Kamala, not Kamala, but it's Kamala. Apparently Donald Trump is doing what he did to Obama, which is questioning her eligibility to serve as vice president because of her ethnicity, I guess, and the fact that she has parents that are immigrants, but she herself was not an immigrant. So, you know, her mom moved to the US at a young age, 1959. She was 19 years old, and she decided just to move to California to obtain a PhD. So, you know, her mom was very intelligent, obviously, and so was her dad. Her dad's Jamaican, as we know. And some of the Jamaican family members over the weekend, after she was nominated, have come forward and said, listen, she's been to Jamaica. Some of them have met her. She's got aunts and whatever there on her father's side. And she was always happy to go and meet them as family. And she seems very proud of her diverse background. So although she didn't grow up and spend a lot of time with her dad, she has talked about her Jamaican roots and her roots coming from having two parents that were first generation immigrants. And there's a picture that's going around of her with, I think, her Jamaican grandmother that I have seen as well. So listen, at the end of the day, we all have come from somewhere and we all have immigrant connections. Even the president himself, his grandparents, or was it his parents? But he's not that far removed from immigrant status either, But, once you're born in the United States of America, you become an American. And so she grew up as an American because of her mixed Black and South Asian background. She's considered a Black woman. So I don't even know what the argument is. But there's this whole debate now from Trump about, what do they call it, birther? Like, where was she, born, and what rights does she have? And as we know, in the United States of America, to run for certain or hold certain jobs, you actually need to be born like a born American. You couldn't have gotten it by any other means. And so there's no doubt, because Harris was actually born in Oakland, California, that she is eligible to be vice president or even president of the United States. Now, the kind of quirky thing about Trump is he flip-flops a lot. Like, sometimes he confuses me, I gotta be honest with you, because I don't ever quite know where Trump is on certain issues. So at one point, let me show you this. At one point, he said that she was a fine choice. So listen to this. This was just literally a couple weeks ago, July the 29th. I mean, that wasn't that long ago, right? Not even a month ago, he said that, I think she'd be a fine choice, Kamala Harris, a fine choice. And then this past week, when she was actually chosen, he flips the coin and says, oh no, he still kind of supported her. He says, I would say the best opening so far would be Kamala Harris. I think this was when she was running against him potentially as a presidential nominee. And then obviously she's dropped out of the presidential race. So to go from these comments, she's the best so far, I think she'd do a fine job, to all of a sudden now saying that she may not even qualify. She's not an American. I mean, I can't think of anything more insulting than telling someone that they're not who they are in terms of their citizenship status. Like, I find that to be highly insulting. I don't know about the rest of you, but if someone said to me, you're not a Caymanian, I'd be like, what? Are you kidding me? Of course I'm a Caymanian. And I've got multi-generational Caymanian parents, and you would get insulted by such accusations. I think as it stands now, though, Trump tries this with everybody who has any sort of mixed race, which is so amazing because America is such a diverse population. Like, they continue to struggle with race relations, folks, on a daily basis. We haven't talked about it in a while, but trust me, the race riots, all kind of stuff, they're not as bad as they were over a month ago, but they are continuing, and the protests are continuing. Changes are coming slowly but surely. And so as a country that is founded on the backs of immigrants, whether those immigrants were brought by force, like the slaves, or whether they were like a lot of the Irish Americans and European Americans who came over to try to find a better opportunity in the land of milk and honey, which, by the way, had their own natives there that were taken advantage of and trampled and abused and so on. Someone was saying to me a couple weeks ago, why is it that the Native Americans don't seem to have any issues in the US? I'm like, what? People, it is so important that you learn your history. or the history of other countries before you start to talk about Native Americans. Native Americans, who were the only indigenous Americans, we think of them as Indians on this side of the world. They had maybe just as bad as an experience as the slaves. You know, they were treated unbelievable. I mean, they've had their children stolen. They have had, really stolen, like by force. They were raped and assaulted. They had their land taken from them. So history has not been kind to the Native Americans either. They were not treated with any special respect or royalty or anything like that. In fact, one of the most interesting things about Native Americans is in their struggle, they think that they have won a little bit because some of them have been able to get their land back. But scholars actually think that there could have been 50 million people already living in the Americas when it was discovered by Christopher Columbus. So he first landed in the Bahamas, if you know your history. And so he met different types of Native Americans. There were different ones in Alaska and throughout the US. So estimates are, they date back, having come from Asia over 12,000 years ago. And there were at least 50 million of them already in the Americas, with 10 million in the area that would eventually become the United States. So that's a lot. So they didn't go there and just find 2,000 Native Americans like, oh, we discovered you. They were actually there. So of course, because of migration, they were pushed to the brink of almost extinction. They were, the Europeans brought with them diseases and stuff that the Native American population had not been exposed to, and they had no idea about those diseases. And so just like how we have no immunity against COVID-19, back in those days, they had no immunity against smallpox and chickenpox and all those sorts of things. And they were almost wiped out by a lot of those imported diseases. So yeah, like the people in Alaska, the Native Americans in Alaska, were very, very different. They had more of an Eskimo, what they call Eskimo Aleut language. So they didn't all share, because 50 million people is a lot of people, right? They didn't all share common cultures and languages. So they've actually got them separated into 10 separate cultures. There's the Arctic, the subarctic, the Northeast, the Southeast, what they call the Plains, the Southwest, the Great Basin, California, and the Northwest and the Plateau. So they, survived, and a lot of times close to the water, small fishing villages. It just depends on where exactly they were. So sometimes they hunted seals and polar bears and other big game. And so they lived in close proximity to be able to hunt a lot of those animals. So some of them had more in common than others because of how the migration process worked. And Alaska again was purchased by the United States in 1867. But of course, for thousands of years, the Indians were already there. So the native population in Alaska in particular dropped to just 2,500. Listen to this now. It dropped to 2,500 because of decades of oppression and exposure to European diseases by 1867. So you can imagine that's 2,500 is not a whole lot of people. And, depending on where you were, you had to obviously adopt to your culture and to different things. So, the ones in California and Mississippi and Delaware did different things in terms of farming and survival. And so you'll hear some different languages and groups that come out of those specific areas. So it's an amazing history. You guys should learn a little bit about Native American history because they were here before all of us. And there were some groups, for example, the Northeast culture. They were very aggressive and warlike. They're called the Iroquoian, I think is how that's pronounced, groups. And they were very aggressive. I guess they just had to be. And if you were not part of their allied confederacies, or maybe even if you were, because they banded together like different villages and stuff like that. They had allies back then. They would kill you in a heartbeat. Yes, they would scalp you. They were not playing around. So they had a lot of wars, and they did not take lightly to the Europeans coming over and colonizing America. And these colonial wars actually forced the natives to take sides. So sometimes they would pit the Indian groups against each other. Sounds like a shocker? Not really. So a lot of indigenous people were removed from their land. Some of the names that we have heard because of the proximity in the South includes the Chickasaw people, the Cherokees. A lot of us have heard of Cherokee Indians, Choctaw, Creeks, and they were part of what's called the 5 civilized tribe. And some of them spoke a variation of the Muskegon language. And of course, if we go to Florida, we would have heard there's a lot of, when you look at the influence of the Indian culture in Florida, it is huge. And even in Mexico, like a lot of in South and Central America, you hear the names and you know that that's an Indian name. The Spanish have taken on, even when I hear a term like Tegucigalpa, that to me sounds so Indian. We just think, oh yeah, that's just the Spanish, that's the capital of Honduras, but it sounds very much like an Indian name. And there's a huge influence in names all over Mexico. So Mexico would have had their own, indigenous groups and indigenous populations. And they had their own tribes within Mexico. And you hear a lot of the influences, something like some areas up to 65% of Mexico are really native Indian still. So the Mayans, you've got the Yucatan, all these terms have a Comanche, they all have Indian influences because they're Indian names. Coaxa, the Zapotec people, they're all over Mexico and America. So the influence of the names you can see in a lot of different areas. Florida is no exception. I mean, when I lived in Florida, we'd sometimes go camping and you'd hear, again, camping sites, camping names, names of like teams, Apalachee, Miccosukee. There's a whole area in Florida called Miccosukee. I think there's a Miccosukee like natural reserve or something that I've been to before where they still have alligators and other things. Of course, Seminole is a big one. Yamasi, Tumaquao. I mean, there's a lot of Indian influence. And so some of the street names are still very much in some of the specific areas, like cities and stuff within Florida, have a lot of those native languages and so on. But one of the interesting things I was saying to this person, I know this conversation is kind of segue a little bit. We're going to get back on track here. when they were talking about the influences of people and how the Native Americans have appeared to have assimilated, you know, the Americans, the Native Americans are probably the only group that have successfully asked for and received some sort of reparations. And it's funny because when the African Americans ask for it, there's a big kickback and, oh, you need to let that go. That was like a couple hundred years ago. Let it go. Well, it's easy to say that because you don't know your history. So the tribes, some of the tribes have successfully received some sort of reparations in different areas. And they've gotten some of their land back, obviously, not all of it. And so what they did for the Seminoles, for example, you know how you've got Seminole, the casino, right? They actually have an Indian Reparations Act. There's a Sioux Falls Indian, Oklahoma. They actually received some of their land back that their natives could live on. And this was after World War II. Congress actually created the Indian Claims Commission to pay compensation to any federally recognized tribe land that would have been seized by the US government. So again, this concept of, oh, the US government has never paid reparations and they would never do it, is often heard when you hear it in the context of the African American people. But the truth of the matter is, it has happened in very recent history. The Indians have benefited. I mean, I use that term loosely because when you think about what all of these groups have lost, it's just amazing. But they have partially benefited from getting some of their lands back. So the other thing that they did is they allowed them, like on their land, there's certain things that they can do. They have like tax-free status, and they are considered almost like a country within a country. So they do have certain tribal laws and rules that they can follow, and they do have certain exemptions, I think, from like certain things with the police and stuff like that. So the Indian Claims Commission was created after World War II to pay compensation for land that had been seized by the United States. And of course, they went into it claiming that it was going to benefit the Indians and Native Americans, but they ended up paying out $1.3 billion, which would be the equivalent of less than $1,000 for each Native American in the US at the time. The commission was dissolved in 1978. So not like it's a huge benefit. But again, this is part of colonialism, colonialistic history. The government decided that those people, the Native Americans, were not competent enough to handle their own affairs, even during the reparation process. So they took control of the money because they said, and this is a quote from them, from the McCoy, Mrs. McCoy, Melody McCoy, who's a lawyer for the Native American group. She says that they believe that they were not competent to receive such large sums of money. Yes, because everybody clearly who's Indian, of Indian descent, you're Native American, you're Black, you're whatever, once you fall into these groups, you're just not competent enough. Like only certain people know how to handle their money. So they held the money in trust accounts, which they then, I think, used. So in 1971, Congress had paid out $962 million worth of land in Alaska for 44 million acres for the Indians, the Eskimos, and the Aleuts to relinquish their Aboriginal claims to the rest of the state. So they got it for pretty much nothing. And once again, the compensation was not awarded directly. It was put in control in the hands of companies. And the beneficiaries were given shares of stock in those companies. When you really understand history, folks, and you take a little bit of time to read up on these things, you'd be shocked to understand what has transpired, even with the Native Americans. And, you know, there is a system in the US where if you are a Native American, depending on which tribe you belong to and where you're located, you can get some benefits now. Like the Seminole Indians will give each Native American a certain amount of monthly stipend. But you obviously have to prove that you are of Native American heritage. So, you know, they do that. Obviously now it's a little bit easier with DNA and other things. But back in the day, if you could go back through documentation and paperwork, you were able to prove your lineage to one of the tribes, you could get thousands of dollars a month. So basically, the inverse of it trying to help people is that it has actually created a system where a lot of people know each month they're going to get a $5,000 check from the Seminole Casino, and they don't have to work and they don't have to do anything. And it's made people unmotivated to do anything with their lives. And there is rampant alcoholism. There's a much higher rate of alcoholism within tribes and on tribal property than anywhere else in the United States. Like, it's a significant amount. And I don't know if that is something that can be seen as a success story as far as I'm concerned. They had a sterilization project, a decades-long eugenics program, where the Indians, the Native Americans, who again were largely poor, disabled, or African American, they were used as guinea pigs. That was in North Carolina. So, well, part of one of the states was North Carolina. So look it up, folks. You know, eligibility is it's like a big thing amongst Indian Native American tribes, is people come and they're like, oh, well, I am 25% Indian. Well, you know, everybody's like, hold your horses, pump the brakes. We don't need any more people cashing in on our money. You got to prove that you're now 25% Indian. So a lot of people were disenfranchised who were actually Indians, because, you know, everybody was on this whole money grab sort of situation, and they're trying to keep the reins on the money. So listen, folks, the bottom line is, read up on your history. You'd be very, very surprised to see what has happened even to the Native Americans, and they were not really treated like royalty or anything like that. There was a massacre in Florida. Again, Rosewood, Florida, of course, there was the big Black residents massacre that happened. And, you know, some people received some compensation from that. One person received $3,000 in compensation. Florida has actually become the first state to pass a reparations law, acknowledging a need to confront racist violence and the government's role in that. So history, if we know it, is just fraught with so much information that I dare say can help us if we would only know a little bit more about it. So Manzi says that this happens all the time in terms of questioning someone's birthrights, birther. They did it with Obama. Well, you know, I find it so interesting that Trump does it more than I guess any other modern president that I've ever heard of. Because again, he himself comes from immigrants, so it just seems really bizarre that he would not appreciate the immigrant struggles and stories a little bit more, because that is part of his own family history. So you can't forget your history as a people, as a country. You can't forget world history. John mentions the Apache Indians, and you certainly can't forget your family history, because all of these things, I think, are very, very significant in who we are and who we've become. And, if we embrace it a little bit more, we are more likely, I think, to make wiser decisions about who we are, because we know ourselves. And that's, to me, is one of the most important things, knowing who you are. So, yes, the Seminole Indians have the Seminole Casino. Now, that casino makes a lot of money. It's tax-free dollars. They don't have to pay taxes on it. And they do make a lot of money off of people going there and gambling. However, again, there's always questions of how that money is being dispersed within the Indian community and how it's being managed. Sue says, so true, good guy. To know him from Smuggler's Cove days, very sad. So Miss Sue knows the bartender that Richie mentioned passed away suddenly. So again, our condolences to his family. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Nikisha. How are you guys? So let's jump into some Cayman happenings now. I want to refocus our energy on what we have going on. So there is a petition that is in circulation against the governor. Now, someone sent it to me last night. I'm going to tell you. Hold on one second. I think this person said someone by the name of Priscilla Cowrie is the author of this petition that is in circulation. So it is change.it. They have all these petition sites now. And I want to read this to you because I think it's important to correct some misinformation that's actually in this petition. So again, this petition, and my gosh, I've never seen people petition more in their lives than they are now on this domestic partnership bill. And boy, oh boy, does that say a lot about us as a country. So it basically says we, the voters of the Cayman Islands, can stop the passage of the new domestic partnership bill. I'm going to read it and then we're going to discuss how accurate this information is. I don't know where people get information like this, but let me just pull this up on the screen here so that we can all have a look. One second here, folks. Because I think accurate information is always so important. So this is how the petition starts out. Okay, so there we go. And then it goes on to say, I'll let you read that bit. So it says that we can stop it, the new domestic partnership bill by the UK in September of 2020, by signing this petition to direct your politician to support the opposition leader filing a motion of no confidence, which will cause the current path, His Excellency the Governor, to stop any notion to force this bill into law while the Cayman Islands government puts this matter to referendum vote for the voters to decide. Now, I am a little bit confused. So I'm going to keep reading and hopefully we can alleviate some of the confusion. It goes on to say, I, the undersigned petitioner and registered elector of the Cayman Islands, direct my elected representative to support the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Arden McLean, prior to August the 31st, 2020, or as soon as practical hereafter, to file in the Legislative Assembly a motion of no confidence in order to give sufficient time for the Cayman Islands government to properly educate and engage the public on all alternatives available in the matter of future legal obligations and social ramifications resulting, blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't quite understand who the vote of no confidence, the motion of no confidence is supposed to be against. Who is it? Like the actual petition doesn't say. So help me out here, folks, if you understand how this works. Because you can't have a vote of no confidence against the governor. He's not an elected official. I mean, he's appointed by the UK. So that's the first issue with this, is who is this against? Who's the vote of no confidence? I don't understand that part. So if someone can help me understand how that would work, I would be most grateful, because already this petition sounds like a bunch of nonsense. It just doesn't make any logical sense. So that's one issue. The other issue is, again, people are saying that they want to do a referendum vote. Now, the petition only says that it needs, the goal that it has set is it needs 500 people. Now, you guys know better than this. The CPR group took upwards of a year to get enough signatures to trigger a people-initiated referendum. So this isn't seeking to trigger people-initiated referendum, because that benchmark is 25% of the electorate, of the registered voters. This is trying to trigger telling your politician, if 500 people say let's do something, which I think the bar is so low, if you really believe you have such widespread, support for this, this should meet the same threshold of 25% of the electorate. But anyway, they're seeking to, it says, support the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Arden McLean, which I don't know that the Honorable Arden McLean has said anything about a motion of no confidence. And last night when I spoke to the opposition, they were trying to figure out who this petition was from and what was going on with it. So they themselves don't seem to know anything about it. So it doesn't look like it was done in consultation with them. And it goes on to say that a motion of no confidence in order to give sufficient time for the Cayman Islands government to properly educate and engage the public in all alternatives. Listen, how much time do you think you need? This has been on the table and there have been discussions back and forth for years. As a matter of fact, someone sent me a video yesterday when the previous governor was here, the Indian guy, the British Indian guy. You'll have to forgive me because I can't remember his name now. Governor, can't remember his name. But there's a YouTube video of him with the media, being interviewed by the media. And even at that time, a domestic partnership bill, the topic of it came up. And that was, again, let's keep this in context of how long this has been ongoing for. So it goes on to say Governor Martin Roper's forced enactment of the proposed domestic partnership bill, along with 11 accompanying laws intended to be revised, which should be brought to the people in a referendum vote. So again, the people think that they can just dictate how a minority group is treated in this country. Well, permit me to educate the people just a little bit, because I'm no expert. I'm not a qualified lawyer, as you know. I mean, yes, I have a law degree, but that doesn't mean that I have a lick of common sense or anything else for that matter. But I do believe in asking questions and trying to get to the bottom of things. That's one thing with me. Some people call it nosy. I'm inquisitive. I want to know what's going on. So listen to what I've discovered. You cannot have a people's initiated referendum on an issue in the Bill of Rights. That part of the Constitution is there to protect partly to protect minority groups. Did we understand that, folks? The Bill of Rights, which the courts have said this country continues to be in contravention of because it does not have the equivalency, right? The functional equivalent of something to the marriage law to give people the rights under all those pieces of legislation. You cannot start a people-initiated referendum against the Bill of Rights. You guys voted for it. Now, if you weren't paying attention, that's shame on you, because you should have been paying attention. I personally had concerns about the Constitution back in the day, and I expressed those concerns, but again, who was listening? You guys weren't even listening. Playing politics as usual, because I heard the rhetoric that half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. Now, my concerns were not in relation to the Bill of Rights. I'm pretty sure of that. So it goes on to talk about Section 70 for people-initiated referendum. But how can you have Section 70 triggered when you're only getting 500 signatures anyway? That's all you're asking for. Like, whoever started this petition seems to not fully understand a lot of different things about the Constitution and about the Bill of Rights. So then it goes on to talk about our Christian values, which apparently the only time we exercise those Christian values is on the topic of one that is a question of sexuality and perceived morality on the part of some people. So it's lengthy. It goes on and on and on. It talks about the partnership bill, and it has 200 and something signatures so far. So one man to one woman for life, says one person. That's Samantha Gurzong. That's funny, because most people that I know have not had just one woman and one man for life, including, I'm sure, Samantha. I'm sure she's had more boyfriends than one. So there's just so much here that's just shocking and unbelievable all at the same time. So yeah, that petition is in circulation. No legal foundation for it. It won't do any good, but I guess if you want to sign in anyway, there you go. Not a single petition for protecting your children. I started a petition for doing that back in, gosh, let me see if I can find it. This was back in, this was, trying to remember, this was a number of years ago, about stricter enforcement for child molesters, protecting your children, mandatory reporting. You guys may not know this. I'm trying to remember what the petition site is. Give me 1 second here. I'm gonna pull this up. You may not know this, but I advocated for mandatory reporting before it was actually in the law. And eventually, thank God, at least they adopted that. We still have no sex offender registry, which is also part of the petition. Let me just see if I can find this petition actually. So yeah, and you know the pitiful number of people that have actually signed that petition. No one else has jumped up and said that they want to start a petition or even sign this petition to support this cause, something as important as sex offender, I think it was called. Something so incredibly important in terms of protecting our children. And that hasn't happened. So while we bicker and fight over adults having their own personal lives and choices to make, we would much rather do that than to sign a petition protecting children. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember when this petition was, but it's old. It's an old petition. I'm just even trying to find it on this petition website. So there we have it, folks. People can certainly pick and choose as a Christian society what values we think are so important. Just trying to find the, I think probably the easiest way to find that petition is to actually go on Facebook. Because remember, there was a sex offender registry page that was started up as well. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but the police at the time threatened to throw me in jail as the administrator of that page. So when you talk about some of the foolishness that we have to put up with in this country, it's just absolutely unbelievable. Because they were saying that, oh, you can't post the pictures and whatever, sex offender. So I actually handed it over to a friend of mine in Florida, because she will have all the protections that I wouldn't have. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like she's been doing a very good job of keeping up the page, because a lot of the information here is dated. So I think I should try to reach out and see if we can get her to do a little bit better job with that. But anyway, have a look. You know, you have a teacher's aide. I'm just having a look at their website. Pleading guilty to indecent assault against 4 primary students. And as you guys remember, his family is connected, and they were trying to protect him at the time because he's related to a former politician and this and that. It's just ridiculous, K-Man. Like, absolutely ridiculous, the things that we want to stand for. And apparently, the only thing that we want to stand for are, you know, this whole thing against gay rights. And you know what is so amazing? I was talking about a known convicted child molester. He molested a 4-year-old child in West Bay. This was many years ago. And I was talking to someone about who that person was. And listen, as Caymanians, we are so connected, but yet we're so misinformed and uninformed, not even misinformed. And this person that I was telling the story to doesn't remember. And of course, the archives and places like the Compass and stuff, sometimes they've done like weird things with their archives. So it's hard to even find these stories now. But this case stood out in my mind for a number of different reasons, including, you know, what he actually did to the child. But in addition to that, I mean, we've got attorneys talking about, you know, defending some of these people. It's just, it's so incredibly disturbing. I'm disturbed by it. And I'm disturbed by it. I know that a lot of you all are disturbed by it, but yet nobody does anything. No one starts a petition. No one, you know, speaks out on this issue. Hardly ever. But on same-sex relationships, that becomes a topic. Someone said to me yesterday, oh, You're supporting these same-sex relationships and these same-sex people. Did you see the story about the person who became a transgender and then regretted doing it? I'm like, okay. Did you see the story of the 90-something-year-old man who finally came out as being gay? He lived his entire life as a straight man and he did not want to do that. But because he felt like he lived in a world that would never accept him, he lived his entire life as a lie. So what? You find a story about someone who wished that they hadn't changed, who is transgender, and I find one of a guy who's lived 90-something years. And finally, at 92 or 94, I forget his exact age, he is able to live some of his truth before he dies. You know, which is more impactful? Doesn't matter. These are adults making their own decisions. And there are adults who will, no doubt, make decisions one way or the other that they will be living with regrets. I'll see if I can find that petition. I'm going to share it with you guys because the petition has really gone nowhere, unfortunately. In terms of the government. And that's got, I think, maybe a couple thousand signatures. But again, that should have 10,000 more signatures than it does for sure. But it speaks to us as a country. It speaks to what we value. Good morning, Cecile. Good morning, Paul. Catherine, good morning to you. So Catherine says, do we, the voting public in Cayman, not have better things to worry about than this domestic partnership bill? For years, you, Sandra, have been trying to get, thank you, Catherine, a sex offender registry up and running, but it seems our leaders are not interested. Are they afraid who they might expose? Well, evidently, yes, they are. Because Attorney General has himself said that Cayman is too small to have a sex offender registry. So apparently we're too small to protect our children. Because everybody knows everybody. Well, apparently not, because there have been people who've been convicted of horrendous offenses against children. And if everyone knew everyone, then people in the community who see this guy walking around, remember there was one guy who his sister hired him to work at her daycare and he was actually in jail for molesting his own daughter and impregnating her while she was still in elementary school and then giving her castor oil to abort the child. And then you're going to turn around and make this man work in a daycare, his own sister. People, you need to wake up. We've had, going back to 2015, drama teacher groomed teen sex victims. We've heard about that. And how long did it take to finally get grooming legislation in place? So it's unfortunate. We've had numerous people here in the Cayman Islands who have molested and abused children who continue to this day to do so. And these same groups that are so concerned about morality and doing the right thing have never once spoken out about those ills in our community. Why? Why is that? You know, I just don't get it. It's just unbelievable that time and time again, I'm here having this discussion. What is it about the gay community that we are so obsessed with? I mean, the obsession and the hate and the constant on and on, it's like, what on earth? The petitions. These are ministers of religion who've never petitioned to help our children. Some of them are the ones abusing our children, but not all, of course. But what about lending your voice to such an important topic? Why not? I don't even know what to say, folks. So, convicted child molesters are walking around amongst us because somebody said to me, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that person was actually convicted of child abuse." And I said, "Yep, not only were they convicted, but they have a brother who was convicted, and they are close family members to someone that I often talk about on this program who seems to like underage children." Because we do know, when you do the research, that there are people who, professionals who say that sex abuse and child molestation runs in families. So it is often a family issue. And so it's not surprising when you hear of multiple persons in a family, being accused of sexual abuse and sexual molestation. And it's a very complicated issue in terms of why it's so ingrained in families. And, the abusers pass it on from one generation to the next, because every time they create a victim, that victim then victimizes other people, other younger people, often within the family. So Jamaica's had a sex offender registry for years, and Cayman still can't get one. We're hiring teachers, instructors at UCCI and all over the place that are here engaging in child pornography. And I want to know, has Priscilla Powery, I don't know who Priscilla is, but has she ever started a petition for that topic? Has she ever started a petition about the elderly in the community who are abused all the time? Has she started a petition about the lack of decent education, government education for our children, which will directly impact their opportunities? If my neighbor is gay, lesbian, or bisexual, what impact is that going to have in my life? The government decisions that are being made in relation to education, the economy, and other such decisions will have an impact on me. And otherwise intelligent people are engaging in a rhetoric on this topic that is just unbelievable. I don't know what to say, folks. I'm just so over it. Good morning, Diana. Thank you. Yes, Sue, it is shocking and unbelievable how they think. Good luck with your petition. I don't think it's going to help. But I'm sure a few people will sign it. All right, what else was on the agenda this morning for discussion? Let me just have a look here. Oh, so a bit of good news. The first regiment graduated this weekend. So big congratulations to them. We did air a portion, I think we caught most of it, of the ceremony. The audio was really poor, and that had nothing to do with us. That was whoever was recording it at the source. And now they've had their first graduating class, so to speak. They had a parade at Truman Bodden. And no, it was not open to the public. I heard someone say, well, there's hardly anybody there. Did they invite the public? I wouldn't imagine that they would have invited the public because of, obviously, the pandemic. And so congrats to all of those people, those young people, a lot of young people participated in that. So for sure, I want to take my hats off to them. And there was a turtle rescue over the weekend that I was very impressed with. So did you guys see this story of the turtle who got stuck in a swimming pool? And apparently this happens more often than you think. This particular pool has actually had another rescue there prior to this weekend. And so the turtles get, they come in, it's nesting season. They do come in to lay their eggs on the beach, and then they go back out. Now, this poor turtle got a little disoriented, mama turtle here, on her way back out to sea. They do use the moon as a guide to help them. And I don't know, because I understand that this property actually turns off their lights at night, the exterior lights, during mating season or nesting season for this exact same reason, because they do not want the turtles to get confused. So there she is, anywhere between 350 and 400 pounds. This is a big turtle. And I'm so thankful for the women who saw her. They said they saw her from upstairs. They were looking at the balcony and they looked down. They're like, what's that swimming in the pool? She did sustain some minor injuries when she probably fell into the pool. So there's some little scrapes and bruises, poor thing. And Mama's going to be going back out to sea. So she's laid her eggs. And she was trying to get back out to sea. And there's video footage in case you missed it. I think this is a wonderful rescue effort. And they took her back and it took look at how many people in this next photo who were trying to lift her. She weighs a lot. You can imagine 350 to 400 pounds of dead. When I say dead, I mean like dead weight, not that she was dead, but dead weight, trying to get Mama back out to the ocean, the big wide ocean. So the Department of Environment participated in the rescue, as well as some turtle rescue organization. And I don't have all of the names of the persons, unfortunately, who were participating in that. But a big shout out to all of the people who did. Thank you for that. I think it's wonderful when we can see Mother Nature in trouble and struggling, and we can then assist her in getting back to where she needs to be. So that was, I think, a really feel-good story for the weekend. I enjoyed hearing all the details of what transpired and seeing all the video footage in terms of that. Now, we also wanted to talk about our community calendar. So if you missed the announcement, and you probably saw us posting up a few events over the weekend. So first of all, congratulations to Alric. Alric had a back-to-school drive yesterday at Windsor Park. It was kind of like a back-to-school drive, family fun day. He had a bouncing castle and some other things for the kids to do at the Windsor Park. And yes, Miss Darlene, that was a wonderful rescue. And so you could go out, take the kids out. The weather was a little bit, iffy yesterday. We did get a little bit of rain, overcast and so forth. But kids could go out. So we posted that on our events calendar for the weekend. So any community event that you have, school events, community events, we've already put up like the school opening dates and so on. Please, by all means, reach out to us to have those items added to our events calendar. We will do business events as well, but there is a small fee if you are a business to be included in the calendar. So just by way of complete and full disclosure. Thank you so much. I just got another message. It seems like people love the pink today that I'm wearing. I appreciate that. So yes, good folks, make your submissions for the community calendar. And we'll be happy to put up your event. So if you've got, any kind of community group, your karate organization, dance, whatever, do reach out to us. Nonprofit organizations obviously are not charged for anything. And then we will have a small fee for businesses. But your event not only gets posted on the community calendar, but it actually gets sent out to 10,000 plus persons who subscribe to receive the notifications. And that list grows by the day. So you do have a wide reach of individuals who will see your event. So please let others know about it, because obviously a calendar is only as useful as the information that you put into it. So yes, Mr. Alric was out and about on Saturday, doing the back to school drive. So he had on Saturday, he collected, I think, a lot of the pre-ordered backpacks and so on. And I like when someone is doing a back to school drive, I really appreciate this. I know Chris Saunders does them every single year as well. When they get out there and they buy quality products for our kids. I hate nothing more than to see people trying to buy cheap things to give to kids just because it's cheap. Nobody wants to go to school with like a cheap backpack or anything like that. So you got to remember, kids have pride, And I like this. These all look like they're name brand bags. I mean, it doesn't have to be a $200 bag by any stretch of the imagination, but just a good quality bag that will hopefully last them at least the entire school year. And if you take care of your things, as my Aunt Lottie always said in her Aunt Lottie Pearls of Wisdom, these things will last you well into the following year. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? We were always taught to take care of your stuff. I was saying to my husband the other day, honey, the last time I actually, I go in my closet and I've had clothing like this top that I'm wearing today, I've had for years. I keep telling him, I think I need to refresh my wardrobe because there are things in there that I've had for 10 years. I'm lucky they still fit, But I always try to buy stuff that has a little bit of room in it, right? And then he was saying to me, you've had stuff for 10 years. Imagine my closet. So if you take care of your things, absolutely. Look at this, backpacks and school supplies. I love how Alric had it all nicely organized so that you could see here by year 3, year 4, year 5, because obviously different years require kind of different school supplies. So what you might give someone who's in year 3, by year 6, they might need a little calculator or something a little bit different, right? So Alric did speak with us about the donations that he received. Apparently some of his former colleagues and partners, and basically his former employer at the at PwC had made a sizable donation for him to be able to put this together, as well as some anonymous donors as well, because not everyone wants people to know, or they don't care for the attention, but they still want to help in a meaningful way. And I think it speaks a lot to Alric, the volunteer work that he's been doing, his character, that even his former employers will step up to the plate and say, you know what, I'm so glad to see what you're doing. And I must say that there was another donor who reached out to me who wanted to help with some of the Feeding the People initiatives that Alric has been working on. And they contacted me and said, hey, can I get Alric's number? Because I'm so impressed with his continued community service. And that's the thing about community service. When people see you doing good, they want to support and they want to help you, whether it's volunteering their time or, if they have resources to volunteer or money to give, resources to give. Some people have cooked meals. Remember Famous Kitchen stepped up to the plate during COVID, and they cooked hundreds of meals that were then distributed out to the community. So I know Krista Brown was very instrumental in arranging that. And there have been other people like Krista. There's been other restaurants. I don't want to mistakenly call out the wrong name, but I do know that there have been other restaurants that have been during COVID, because what else were they going to do with their kitchen, right? They have been volunteering to cook. So as long as Meals on Wheels or the food bank or others brought them food, they would actually then put the meals together and cook the meals. So yeah, and one of the things that Alric said to me is that he was actually looking to hire a chef who could just have a place where they could prepare these meals for people, because it was actually cheaper to do it that way than to even outsource it to a restaurant. To just have someone cook the meals and cover the cost of the person's salary and I guess the venue and stuff like that, to have the meals readily prepared. So I thought that was a fabulous idea. So thank you to all of the people who volunteer their time to make sure that people in our community have a little bit. That's the other thing that bothers me about people with these petitions. Sue says she's so shocked about this one against the governor. I mean, people have been so rude. They've taken a photo of the governor that was on the Compass headline and put like lipstick on the governor and makeup. I'm just like, listen, you people had the opportunity to deal with this yourselves. You didn't do it as the court ordered. So what did you expect the UK to do? Just sit back and be like, oh, no problem. You can ignore a court order, the government of the Cayman Islands. You can contravene people's human rights, and we will just allow that to happen. Anyone who actually thought that that was going to be the response needs a reality check. Sorry. Good morning, Odette. So Eunice said that it was a great event. Despite the rainfall, it still went on. And I think Alric will be going through his list in case people were not able to make it out. He will be contacting you guys and going through his list. So if you reside in the district of Georgetown South, and you'll want to get in contact with Alric, he can certainly assist you with a backpack for your kids. But it's while supplies last, and there's not an unlimited number of supplies, I'm afraid. So it would have been a good idea to probably have gotten out there yesterday and grabbed one of those bags. And as I always say, only if you're in need, folks. Don't just take something because it's free. Think of other people and the fact that there are limited resources. And so sometimes people are in need, they're shy to ask for help, they may not come out to an event like that. So I think Alric appreciates that as well. And so he will be making every effort to reach out to people in his community. But I would say if he doesn't reach out to you, it's probably because he doesn't have your contact details. So by all means, you can certainly reach out to him, and he will be happy to provide you with a bag. Yep. Just having a look here at what else is going on in the news. So there's some big conversation. I'm not avoiding this conversation. I'm just trying to get some more information on it about this concept that there's some sort of tax that's being floated around. So the reason why I haven't yet mentioned this or had this discussion is because I'm trying to still do a bit of a fact-finding mission, because I am aware that the minister has said that, I think CNS, Cayman News Service, carried the story, and the minister has actually said that the story is inaccurate or incorrect. So I want to hear in his own words exactly what transpired. So the minister said that the COVID-19 recession could lead to tax. But again, I need to hear exactly what he said. And so I do want to pull that conversation up. Now, in case you missed it, I was in court last week. I think we talked a little bit about this. I do want to share something with you guys because I actually didn't catch this. I've got to be honest with you. A lot of times when I get served these court papers, I barely look at them. I know that sounds really bad, but I really don't. It's become so like another one kind of thing. But someone pointed out to me, Sandy, is that how you spell your name? And I'm like, of course not. So they have my name spelled Sandry, Sandry instead of Dra. So only God knows how they got that wrong. But anyway, this was a summons for the 27th day of September. But when I went last week, the judge already had this up for supposedly disorderly conduct, because I think they were going to claim I was using calumnious language. In other words, probably profanity and such behavior to persons publicly, such as would tend to provoke a breach of the peace. So as is typical of the Crown, they didn't have the papers ready. So they're supposed to have the papers ready for me tomorrow. So I will be going by the DPP's office. So please have my documents ready for me, folks. And yes, I will definitely be having a look at what they're claiming is the issue this time around. But that's not the only case. There's another case where they're claiming the exact same thing as they did in the Matthew Leslie case, that a podcast I did amounted to harassment. It's like every podcast I do now that they're offended by. Oh, that's harassment. So we shall see. But yes, we continue to go to court and defend ourselves. So I was not the only notable person that was in court last week. Mr. McKeever Bush, Speaker of the House, was also in court last week for allegedly assaulting a woman. And so Mr. Bush has a trial set for December, I think the 7th or so, early December. But of course, we know that that probably will not happen in December. I would be putting my money in the fact that that will be postponed until probably into next year, closer to the election. And then he'll probably get so busy with the election, they'll postpone it after the election. But yes, so that is part of what happened last week. So he was in court on, I think it was Thursday. I believe it was Thursday. Yeah. So he's charged with 4 different things, including common assault. And let me just tell you what the other things are. I think one of the charges is the same one that I might have been charged with as well, because I guess he was drunk and sloppy and all over the place. Yeah. The other bit of news over the weekend that I found to be incredibly interesting is Fidelity Bank announces a sale of pension and insurance businesses. So I get the impression that this sale was actually completed way before, but I believe that they're taking a bit of a hit reputationally from even being associated with the pension fiasco, because a lot of people are not happy with how Fidelity Pensions has handled their situation. And so they made the announcement on their page over the past week that, oh, by the way, we've actually sold the pension and insurance business because we want to focus on just being a bank. That's what they've said. So they're focused on just being a bank. They made the announcement over the weekend. And now they're doing a whole marketing thing where Fidelity Bank is just a bank. Nothing else. Don't associate us with the pension or insurance business. Those are completely separate from us now. And I don't know, will they undergo a name change? I mean, the pension is Royal Fidelity Pension or something like that. But unfortunately, I think the truth of the matter is people will lump anything with the name Fidelity in it right now, all in one, which again is not a good thing for Fidelity Bank. And I do have people saying to me that they are moving their business, their line of business, whether it's the insurance, the banking, and other things, although they're not affiliated with the pension company, they just don't trust how any of it has gone down. And as far as we know, the CEO, although it's been sold, the CEO of the pension company, Mr. Brett Hills, he also not in charge of the bank. And he seems to be where the issue lies with not being able to get galvanized and get his team together. So just because they've sold it, is he still involved in both the pension, which he said the other day in the LA? He's in charge of basically the bank and the pension side of things. So whoever it was sold to, are they not going to do something about that? That he's completely mismanaged by all accounts what has happened. Someone just messaged me asking me, is that a cruise ship in port? I don't know. I'm nowhere near the port. Send me a picture, folks, if you see a cruise ship in port. I'm certainly not aware of that. But I know one thing. They can be out in port all they want. They are not docking here in the Cayman Islands. It's possible, I guess, they could be out there needing some emergency assistance. I don't know what cruises are out and about. There was one just the other day, you guys may have heard about this, that they decided that they were going to go out, which I just don't get these cruise companies. I think it was a week-long tour, and was it in the UK somewhere? But seriously, does this even make any sense? So they decided, listen to this. The MS Ronald Amsterdam, I think is the name of it. They are out there cruising around, and then they come back and they're like, oops, Roland Amsterdam. So it's the ship. Oh, we've made a mistake. We shouldn't have had this tour, really. So it was a week-long tour to the Arctic. It was scheduled. Ports include England and Scotland. 4 crew members admitted to the hospital on Friday. This is Friday a week ago, with coronavirus symptoms. Shortly after the ship docked in the Arctic port of Tromsø, and they later tested positive for the virus. Another 32 crew members on board are found to be infected. Hello, why are you out on the water? The staff were tested positive, included staff from Germany, France, the Philippines. And they actually tested positive before leaving their home countries. And they did not quarantine before starting work on the ship. 32, plus the other 4. And some 180 persons were permitted to leave the ship on Friday, leaving authorities over last weekend trying to figure out where they had gone to. So that's another 180 people that were potentially impacted with this virus. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So we can't leave it up to the cruise companies to have any degree of common sense. when it comes to this particular issue of being out in the port. So what I would dare say is this is why the government has had to make the decision to say, nope, we will see you sometime next year. And it's not likely to be anytime early next year. It's probably going to be mid to late next year, depending on what happens with the coronavirus. And Dr. Fauci was saying over the weekend that there are a number of persons who are going around talking about herd immunity and the significance of having herd immunity, and that we should all jump on the bandwagon in terms of this herd immunity concept. And unfortunately, he said, listen to me, herd immunity, which is like people going out there and purposely getting infected, is a horrible idea. And if the US tried to do that, the death toll would be unbelievable. And, you know, they're just people who do not want to listen to the professionals. They want to think that they have all of the answers themselves because they are just super smart. They're smarter than anybody else. So the experts are saying that we're a long way, is the term they use, from herd immunity to this virus. And Dr. Fauci is saying, folks, don't play around with this virus. Do not go out there and purposely get infected with this virus, because the death toll will be immeasurable. So 20 hours ago, Newsweek reported that Trump brought on a herd immunity doctor, Dr. Scott Atlas, onto his corona task force. And this is where having politicians sometimes involved in policy making and putting together things like these task force is incredibly dangerous. Seriously. So Fauci said 2 days ago that any attempt to get coronavirus herd immunity would lead to massive death tolls. This was his warning. As though they're not dealing with enough death already, there are still people who believe that you just go out there and get purposely infected. And he said, listen, there's too many vulnerable people in the US. And some people do not even know that they're vulnerable. So he did a live Instagram session on Friday, and he was talking about this. He said, even with the relatively high percentage of people without symptoms, a lot of people would die. They've already had over 167,000 persons die from the virus. But he said, listen, one of the biggest epidemics that they have in the US is that of obesity. And with that comes high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, and all of those people, because of those associated what we call lifestyle diseases, are at higher risk than people who don't have them. So if you already have a high rate of those associated illnesses, lifestyle illnesses, if COVID or coronavirus was allowed to run rampant in the US, every obese person, and there's a lot of us out there, including myself. I was just saying this weekend, oh my God, I got to get it under control now. I got to start getting back on the treadmill, walking, playing tennis, something, because we desperately need to lose 25 pounds, folks. Get on it. Let's get on it. Ugh. I was looking in the mirror. I'm like, oh, this belly fat is just too much. And the belly fat is the worst kind, because you know what it does? Even if you're not fat, you can have what they call visceral fat. It's like the deep-seated internal fat surrounding your organs. So it surrounds your vital organs. And that's the worst for like heart disease and strokes and all these other things. So When you get to a certain age, you got to take it a little bit more seriously. So we need to get on it, folks. We need to get back to calling Ricardo onto the program so we can start working out. But yeah, so Dr. Fauci has said, don't believe in herd immunity. It's overrated. At this point, we don't even know if survivors have any immunity at all. And it seems like the initial research is that if they have it, it's very minimal. Like people are getting reinfected, so it doesn't seem to be working very well. But he's saying that if people went out there and get purposely sick, hospitals will be overwhelmed. It would overwhelm the medical systems in place. And that would not be a good thing. So I would err on the side of caution and probably listen to Dr. Fauci if I were you guys. But we've been hearing people say this about herd immunity from day one. Oh, well, my family doctor said, well, your family doctor is not an epidemiologist and not a virologist and not an expert. But everybody wants to be the experts to tell you how this is going to work and how this is going to play out until it hits them. And then on their deathbed, oh my God, I should have taken coronavirus more serious. It's too late. Then it's too late. So California on Thursday, it was the 18th consecutive day that the US had more than 1,000 deaths. So pretty much every single day in the month of August, the US has exceeded 1,000 deaths per day. They also reported another 51,000 new cases. And California is the first state to have reached over 600,000 cases. So California now is on the other side of heading towards 1 million cases, folks, for one state alone. So Georgia, Atlanta, not that far away, has a rising infection rate. And now the same White House Corona Task Force, whose president refuses to wear a mask, is urging the state to adopt a mandatory mask policy. So Dr. Fauci is quoted as saying, you can't run away from the numbers. You can't run away from the number of people who've died, the number of people getting hospitalized, the surges that we're seeing. And Dr. Tom Ingleby of Johns Hopkins has said that this disease, this virus, I should say, is doing very substantial damage to the country, urging continued use of face covering, social distancing, and washing. With over 5.2 million nationwide people infected, they're really urging people to try to contain this. And they say in the next 3 weeks, the number will reach over 189,000. That's projected deaths. And that's their forecast published by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So those were the new the new projections, my apologies, released on Thursday that are now projecting by September the 5th, you'll have over 189,000 dead. And of course, the projected range is anywhere from 181 to 201,000 deaths. A very grim situation. Of course, the other concern is even if the world can get a vaccine, there are a lot of people walking around who are saying that they wouldn't take it. So how effective is the vaccine going to be if people are refusing to take it? So folks, we're in this for the long haul. Every decision right now that countries are making, whether it's the Americans or others, will impact us all. We cannot open our borders safely until other countries get their situation under control. So if the US continues on this trend, our tourism market is going to be severely impacted because they are refusing to get it under control. If they're pushing things like herd immunity and they're all out there partying and trying to get sick on purpose, that will impact us where 80% plus of our tourists come in from. So we better start looking at some other places, but even other places in the world are having surges in their numbers. So this is the stark reality. Cayman does not live in a bubble. We're dependent on these other people. Look at the situation in Jamaica. Jamaica's now gone over 1,000 cases. And over the weekend, they have decided that on August the 20th, they are going to start now requiring pre-testing of what they're calling high-risk countries, because lately, since they reopened their borders on July the 1st, pretty much all of their cases have been imported in, or a large number of their cases, I should say, have been imported in to Jamaica. So now they're talking about putting some new measures in place, including mandatory testing from people from Brazil, which we know they're having their own explosion of it, the United States, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico, for example. So that's our stark reality, good folks. With the numbers continuing to rise, it's not looking good. But we've already talked about pre-testing with PCR. You still got to quarantine people even when you do that up to a certain point, I think. Because that only tells you in real time what their status is. Good morning to Sandra Whitaker. Thank you, Sandy, for tuning in this morning. Catherine says she's looking out the window. She does not see anything in terms of a cruise ship. Sue says to introduce a tax because that might get short of money is ludicrous. They need to stop wasting money and all the damn road works and plenty other things. Brings a lot of money every day. Look at the building work. Well, maybe one way to stop now is stop giving all these concessions, because we've given away millions of dollars in concessions across the island for projects that will probably never come to fruition. Someone was telling me the other day that some developer got, I don't know, $30 million or something ridiculous in stamp duty waivers and concessions so that we could supposedly get that business, only to hear through the grapevine that they never intended to build the property, that they're going to sell the land before the project gets built and then say, oh, well, we decided to sell it, blah, 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 but they still got all this equipment and everything in concession free. Wow. If that is true, that's a sad indictment on us, but there you have it as a possibility. Thomas says if Cayman opens up during this pandemic, the virus will quickly run through the island. Absolutely. There's no way to cut that. There's no other way to cut that. But speaking of road works, can someone tell me what is going on in Georgetown right now, where the police station is? It's like they paved part of the road and didn't pave the rest of it. Can we find out why that is? And can someone please fix that? It's a disgrace. It looks horrible. And when you're trying to drive through there, it's like clunkety clunk, clunkety clunk. You know, your poor car tires are getting shot. The shocks are getting all messed up. Thankfully we don't have any tourists right now. They're going to see that hot mess. But honestly, it looks horrible. It's destroying people's vehicles. So, Sue, that's one that they need to pave. I think somebody dug up the road to probably lay some pipes or something. I don't know if it was the water authority or who it may have been. But please, by all means, fix it. I don't think a lot of other places necessarily need paving, but that one clearly is in need of repaving. And these companies do it all the time. They go and they mess up the roads, and then the government, i.e. the people, are responsible for paving it back on our dime. And that's a lot of money in our dime. All right, folks, we're out of time already. What? Let's do a few quick birthday shout outs before we wrap up. So today's Miss Doreen Ebanks' birthday. Happy birthday. We've got Sarah Cook. It's Sarah's birthday. Josh Echenichi. Kim Bush Smith is celebrating a birthday. Lizette Martinez also has a birthday. Over the weekend, yesterday was Austin Harris's birthday. So Austin is, I think, a year and a day older than me. Tawny, it was her birthday as well. Grayson McLean had a birthday over the weekend. And tomorrow will be my birthday. So in advance, happy birthday to Sheila, Cortina, Susan Young, Claude Lewis, Katrina Wilson. I'm trying to think who else. David Dixon, I know for sure, head of licensing department. His birthday's tomorrow as well. And there's somebody else that I share a birthday with. So yes, lots of birthdays coming up. So happy birthday to all of you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning. Appreciate the love and continued support. And again, just a reminder about the community calendar. If you've got any events, message your events, send us information to add to the community calendar, and we'll be more than happy to do so. And you guys have a fabulous day. Now, I've got lots of paperwork to do today. Now I'm always thinking, ooh, let me make sure that I don't actually have to be in court because I think that's what happened last week is I was so hyper-focused on getting paperwork done that I literally forgot about my court date. So good people, enjoy the rest of your fabulous Monday. Go out there, do something productive and positive. I know some of you are back to work now. So go get those coins, folks. We all got bills to pay. We got to work hard at it. And that's the only way to make a living in this day and age for sure. So you've been listening to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth, and rejoin me again tomorrow morning at 7:15. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.
Miracle Brokers International is a shipping, moving, and logistics company. You get all our expertise in one stop. Our motto is shop, ship, and save. All shipments are important to MBI and will track your items during shipment, clear through customs on arrival, and deliver to your door. MBI will spend the time in lines to get your cargo for you so you can be more productive with your time. Miracle Brokers, the solution broker. 345-925-5989 or miraclebrokers.com.